Good evening, gentlemen, boys and girls, ladies. What I spoke about in my previous video is a sort of approach to running a Linux distro, okay, or running any Unix-like system. I think one of the things that people have forgotten about, because they get prepackaged ISOs, they get package manager with binaries, or even people who use Gentoo, they basically have a framework for downloading source code and pretty quickly just sort of executing scripts somewhat abstractly to the user and basically getting a program that just runs, you know. And I kind of, well, for some reason I feel the need to say that that's not really what GNU plus Linux is all about. It's not what the Unix philosophy was really all about, and I think that a lot of people are forgetting or are not even introduced to what Unix and Linux and free software and the GNU project are all about. So as part of a little series on managing source code on a system like Ubuntu, which I've got installed here by happenstance of the previous review that I did, I'm going to show how source code can be obtained, extracted, compiled, and then installed onto the local machine. And I'm going to do that in such a way that it's not disruptive to the local file system. I am, to an extent, since this is going to be the first in the series, I'm going to start off with some pretty easy examples, and then we'll move up from there. I don't want you guys to think that this is somehow a replacement for my videos on LFS, which is a different beast altogether. That's going the whole hog, and having everything compiled pretty much by hand on the system. Just as a clarifying point, I use LFS in a slightly different way, because I've done LFS several times. Or at least probably 3 or 4 times anyway. I use automated LFS, which just creates, it doesn't even create the scripts, it kind of does. It scrapes the XML book that it comes from, basically just to give you a bit of a feel for that. So if I type LFS into Google, or Linux from scratch, then you can just sort of we'll go to this. I could have pressed that, but you can just read online. And I'm not stable writer. There's this book, and you can grab the details. So for example, if I was just going to install this one, it'd be this script, and ALFS is able to parse this book in its XML format and grab the scripts, and then you run the scripts. And I've written, in some cases, or I've used my own little automated installer that combines with the scripts. But that's a kind of side note. I'm going to show you today a couple of simple examples. They're going to be contrived examples, and they are going to lean heavily on obtaining the dependencies from the Ubuntu repositories, or from, in this, it's Ubuntu mate this time, or Debian or whatever. Usually distros, their package managers provide a way to get the dependencies, but as we move on, as the examples get more complex, I won't be doing that so much. I'll be grabbing the dependencies online, compiling them, and doing that. But this first part, which I hope will go no longer than, say, about 20 minutes, will just show you how I try to manage things a little bit differently. and my thoughts on a couple of things. So first of all, let's decide that we're going to install something. We'll start off with something pretty straightforward. Okay, so I'm gonna download HTOP. That's going to be I was just thinking of what I might do. Alright, so HTOP is an N-cursors based program, and being as it's a fairly simple program, okay, so being as it's a simple program, I think it's a good idea to try and try it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to download the latest version. So I'm doing here what I would normally do. I'm going to create, in my home directory, I'm going to create a directory called source extension, or make directory source extent, and I'm going to make that as a parent, so all of it recursively made. I'm also going to make a directory called work. Okay, so that's a nice little switch for you there for make directory, and we're going to grab this version of HTOP. So I'm going to cd, okay, and I'm going to grab that guy. So wget, you can use curl or any of the other download managers. This isn't going to take very long. So you can see HTOP. Okay, so tar vf HTOP, and what I'm going to do is, because I don't want my tar archives to be mixed in with my source directories, I'm going to use the -C switch and go like that. And if I go cd work HTOP, I'm using what they call tab completion there. When you type in a command, you can use, so we'll just go like that. I'll just show you that again. cd work, and I press tab, and then because it's the only directory in there, it'll come up with the full thing. I could have partly typed it and then press tab and it'll do the same thing. Right, now we're gonna see if we can trip ourselves up on some dependencies. So what I'm going to do though is first configure my bash rc, which sets up the environmental variables and other aspects of bash. So I'm going to use Vim. I prefer to use Vim because it's a sophisticated editor with lots of shortcuts that you can find quite useful for making quick edits and making edits that take a little bit longer. So this bash rc is quite large. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change a couple of things. I'm going to say that path equals, okay, and I should probably just put some notes here. So custom path or install. Okay, so path equals, and what I'm going to say is /user/local, and then I'm going to go $path, which tells it to go and have a look in path in the /user/local before it uses $path. That's when you execute commands. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set my prefix for make /user/local, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say make flags equals -j4, which says to use 4 threads when building files using make. Okay, so let's try this. Now this switch here is going to tell it when I try to configure, I'm going to do it as though we're looking in /user/local being the install path. So I expect something to go wrong. Okay, so the first thing, on binary distros, you don't have a C compiler installed by default, usually anyway. So on Ubuntu, Debian and the like, there is an easy way of getting the compiler and some basic build dependencies, some common build dependencies. So sudo apt install build essential. Now if you're on another distro, you're going to have to look at your user documentation to work that out. Alternatively, you could, well, you're pretty much stuck. If you don't have GCC, you're pretty much stuck. So you'd have to have a binary that's going to work on your system and blah 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 to build up from scratch. We're not going to do that. Put in your password. It's going to offer up a bunch of stuff. Now, you might think after you put all this stuff in that it's going to be enough. My guess is it's probably not going to be enough, because we're not going to have the ncurses library. So just give that a little bit of a moment. So what a good practice is actually to verify the tarball or the source code that you're downloading. Doesn't seem like there's any opportunity to do that here, so I'm going to have to take it on blind faith. But sometimes they'll give you an MD5 checksum, a SHA 256, hash checksum. They might even use a signature, so something like a GNUPG. So again, check out your local user documentation for how to use those to compare the file with what it should be, and also you might be having a look at the video that I did on MD5 checksumming on ISOs, just to get a feel for how to do that for tar archives. So anyway, well, we don't need to do that, we can just try this. Let's see what fails. Bingo. So see this, it's saying disable Unicode or install this one, which is, I believe I think it has the wide characters, ncurses W has the wide characters, I think, from memory. So anyway, we'll do that. We'll go aptitude, perhaps, search lib ncurses. That's a shame, because in Ubuntu they don't include aptitude, so I'll just use apt-cache. Search lib curses. Okay, so it's probably going to come under lib ncurses. Okay, and we use the dev library, you see. So there is a quicker way of doing all of this, because I know that htop is actually in the repo, so I'll show you that in a moment. Apt install, you can just do that, and that's nice. Okay, and then we just try the configure again. And this could get tedious for you. Lib ncurses W. So I've made a mistake here. See, that was a bit, I blindsided myself there. So sudo apt install that. One way or another, you're not going to get away from using ncurses in its wide character support format, or not. Okay, so that looks like it's configured correctly. If you wanted to know the other configure options, you can just actually usually go configure and then help, and you get a whole bunch of options that are specific to that application. So, and some generic ones as well. So now that I've configured it correctly, I'm just going to take and type make. If I didn't specify my flags in my bash RC, which if we go like this, echo dollar path, you'll see that it hasn't set it up quite the way I expected it to. So that tells me that I haven't sourced my bash RC file. So use full stop to source it. This actually happens on every login. It sources the bash RC file if it exists, and then we can see /user/local is now in there. What I probably should have actually done before is I made a little boo-boo. This is just all part of the... By the way, when I did that Vim before, I could have just gone like this. Vim. And it's going to take me back to the same place. What I should have done is just done, that's fine, but like that, to give it the executable path. And what I can do now is I can just source that again, and yes, it will have the extra path there for /user/local. Not a big deal. The next time I log out and log back in again, that'll be correct. So the next step is make, and I could press -J4, but fortunately make flags, and I just did tab completion again, is set to J4, so I can just type make. Okay, so then I can go sudo su. Notice I'm not putting the dash at the end. The dash at the end pulls in root's environmental variables, which means I would lose my present working directory. Okay, so I'm still in the working directory. What I'm going to do is I am going to just edit root's bash rc accordingly to include those lines that I put in before. But I'm not going to include the path. I'm just going to say prefix equals /user/local. Okay, and that'll be about it. I could put the make one, but you should really just make files with your local user account. Now I'm going to go make install. Okay, and you can have a look at some of this content. It might tell you a bit about what it was doing, but you can see here it's attempted to do a /user/bin install by the looks of it, which I don't really like, but careful looking /user/local/bin. Ultimately what you're going to need to do in this case is just go ls/user/local/bin and see that's there. Now htop's there. Isn't that wonderful? So what you're going to want to do is, and to exit out of a one of the shells, is to press Control D. You can type exit as well, but Control D does it quicker because it gives end of file to the shell. So now that I've done that, I can type, now I can go which htop, and tells me I'm going to be using /user/local/bin/htop, and I just go htop, and now I've got htop. You see? Now if I wanted, the beautiful thing about this is if I wanted to uninstall it, just get out of that, I go sudo su again, just go into c/user/local, and I could either use the uninstaller that I showed you guys the other day, or I could just like deinstall the files from /user/local, since /user/local are just, should in theory be just the user's installed files, not the package manager. Package manager shouldn't really be putting anything in /user/local. There's been apparently debates about this historically, but yeah, I'd tell you just use /user/local, but there are, if you try and use other locations, sometimes it won't always work, and you could be sitting there editing a make file, and even if you edit the make file, it might not work. So your best options are, your best option really is to just put it in /user/local, and then you can just nerf it if you want to. Yeah, so that's the first part of this series. Please remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. In the next one, we'll start talking about pulling in external variables, external dependencies, and I just wanted to tell you a shortcut would have been, so I forgot to tell you this before, but a shortcut would have been to do something like this as well. So you can go at get build dep htop, and see this, it's telling me what I would need to do the equivalent build in this OS. Even though I did it, it'll give me the full set of dependencies. So if I said that against, and hint what we might do in the future is libav tools, libav, yeah, can't find a source package for libav tools. Let's have a look. No. And search libav. Sorry, I just remembered that I wanted to show you this. We might leave it for another time. But basically, you can use, if you have the source directory, the source repositories enabled, you can get the build dependencies of any of the things that are installable on your OS if you're using a Debian-based distro. So yeah, you can just use build dep just like that, and as I said, with htop. So anyway, I'm not going to drag this out any longer. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and tell me any suggestions you have for the next in the series if you want. And just remember that just because you use a binary distro, it doesn't mean you're stuck with that. You'll see all sorts of suggestions over the internet. Oh, just use your package manager's version. Well, what if you don't want to? What if there isn't a PPA? And in fact, the PPA might install to a location you don't like, so then you've got to uninstall it and whatever. Why not just install to /user/local, and then if you don't like what's in there, nerf it. Use a script like I've got, something like that. Anyway, guys, remember, like, subscribe. Talk to you next time. Bye.